Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Gearhead Daily. I am your boy Eric, as usual. I want to say thanks to everybody who has joined recently. I went on vacation for about a week, which is why I've been absent. Took the fam and kids out to New Hampshire and Boston, Maine. Had my absolute fill of lobster and other sea things. It was quite good. So we went whitewater rafting and had a great time. The kids loved it. A little nervous at first, but once they went down the Class 2 rapids, once they couldn't wait to do it again. So we just had a really good time overall. Saw the new Spider-Man movie, which is better, really, than I thought it was going to be. Excuse me. We had a good time. So I was gone. I decided to take a break from kind of just life in general. So thanks everybody for joining me. Welcome to the channel. If you're new, super cool if you'd subscribe. If you can. If not, then hope you come back later. Check out some of the other videos. So I've got my line on a couple 4L80s that I'm gonna go pick up here probably today or tomorrow. I'm going to start tearing those down for the book that I'm writing. I was told that I can promote the crap out of it, so, follow me. I'm going to be posting some videos of some of the things I'm going to be doing to the 4L80s once I get them, tearing them apart, seeing what's wrong with them, seeing what we can do to rebuild, that sort of thing. So look for that in the future. Today, though, I want to talk to you and really pose a question, which is, now that the new C8 is out and everybody's ranting and raving, and to be honest, my Facebook page was just inundated with C8 stuff. And to be honest, I'm kind of with everybody. I've been waiting for this for a really long time. And I know I look as old as Father Time most times, but I am 38. So I've been waiting for this for, I don't know, the better part of 15 years or so. Many people a lot longer. But I want to pose the question because I have heard people say that the new Corvette is not a supercar because it's a Chevrolet, and Chevrolet cannot make supercars. And I wanted to really ask the question, what then is a supercar? Okay, so I want to go over some of the kind of interesting things about the Corvette that I think is really interesting. And if you want to look at the construction of it, I find the whole thing impressive. And when you start looking at some of the details, it is much more impressive than even the outside appearance. That stuff can change. People, making fun of the Fiero and looking at the NSX and a bunch of other things. And one of my retorts to that is, why are all airplane wings shaped exactly the same? Because that's the design that works. And when you have a mid-engine sports car, you're limited to the number of shapes that you have. At least with front engine, you can do a bunch of things with the back and the front and everything. But when it starts getting into mid-engine cars, the shape really is dictated by where the driver sits and where the engines sit. Your wheelbase is fairly fixed, so you don't have a lot to go there, usually 110 inches, 114, somewhere in there. And your wheelbase width is also fairly set because it's, certain regulations they have to fit. So moving stuff around based on where the driver sits, where the engine sits, and the room that you have to work with doesn't allow for a ton to work with. So the shape is going to be, relatively similar to all other mid-engine cars, Fiero, NSX, kind of some exclusions, the older NSX, not the new ones. But I think it's fairly impressive, just the frame and the way they did this, because, this is kind of, very different than what GM has normally done, and they've been doing this for quite a while, and I think some of these renderings are very cool. And I want to share a couple of the little-known facts about something that came out of this. They has this center tunnel, and people have kind of questioned, well, why does it have a center tunnel if it's mid-engine and rear-wheel drive? There's no drive line there. And is that going to be the drive line? And what I have noticed is that is not the case. I had one in the SLC too. It was a big, 2x4 aluminum bar, basically, that ran the length from the floor well to the very back of the car. And essentially what that was is it created some structure to build off of. It was kind of like the center for all of it, and that's kind of what GM is saying here in this case. So it is fairly impressive, but just going through some photos, I know a lot of people have seen this stuff already, but again, I think it's fascinating, and hey, I've been on vacation, so I got to catch up too with everybody else. So this stuff is pretty cool. And I did run across this Top Speed article that I thought was really good. And here are some of the things that I find I did not know, also wanted to share with you, and I thought this was really cool. So it's going to have less welds but more bolts, and I cannot tell you how exciting I am for that piece, because if you have ever cut up a car to add fenders or transmissions or add bigger tires or whatever, or have to replace certain frame components, it's a giant pain in the butt. There's a lot of cutting, there's a lot of welding. But this case, if you look at it, it looks like you're going to be able to take stuff apart pretty easily with just some bolts. It looks like there's a whole bunch of riv nuts, attached to the car. So this is going to be a kind of a dreamland, scape for somebody who wants to modify this and, just kind of, almost modular, pick and choose, that sort of thing. And it also makes it easier in the future for when they want to add bigger engines and turbos and all sorts of great stuff that we have heard is coming out. So it almost looks as if, as somebody points out here at the very bottom of the article, 80% of the structure could be disassembled with hand tools, which is awesome, because look at any car on the market now in the past 100 years, and you need a torch to get most of the thing apart. So I think it's going to be pretty neat. So that is one piece that I'm really looking forward to. It has a bunch of radiators up in the front, which a lot of supercars have. That's pretty standard. A lot of them put them behind this area here where the brake ducting is, because there's a lot of air moving through that. I really hope they figured out the cooling situation, because the C7 Z cars had some cooling issues, and I think there's still a class action lawsuit going over that because they refused to do anything about it. Limp mode was for a lot of folks, especially on track days. But again, using this space right here, as this photo is showing, for that, let's see if I can get that. Can I make that bigger? I can make that bigger. Awesome. Using that space to cool, using the air that's already provided when you're driving to cool certain things, transmission, engine, that sort of thing. So it doesn't have a diff. It's got a transverse, sequential gear, not sequential, but dual clutch gearbox, which is your differential and transmission at once. So the light support here for the bumper support, okay, fine, that's neat. I don't really care about that one. They use magnesium to save a lot of weight, which I think is neat. And if you look at some of these castings that they have, those are pretty detailed castings. So whoever that tool and die maker was, you get a thumbs up from me, because that stuff is impressive. If you look at all that lattice work, very impressive stuff. So my hat's off to you guys, the builders, the guy who gets your hands dirty every day. My hat's off to you. There's that rear tunnel, that big tunnel down the middle, and think of it like a spine. It's the thing that keeps the whole car together, and if you didn't have it, it would really kind of mess with the structural integrity of the car. So what they're saying is, even though there's a large tunnel down the middle, it's not going to be a way for the four-wheel drive system in the future. We've been hoping, right? That's not going to be the drive shaft area for it, so it'll be interesting to see what they do in the future with the all-wheel drive version. But all-wheel drive may not happen. I don't know. I think it will. I think a lot of places these days, that's the way they're going, and it makes a lot of sense. So in my opinion, I think it will. It has two trunks, which I thought was cool. The front trunk and the rear trunk. The frunk and the rear trunk. So trunk, I guess, the traditional trunk. Lots of brake cooling, so hopefully... The one thing that I've always appreciated about Corvettes is they know you're going to beat on these cars. They know you're going to beat them. And they've been built so. So my current Z06, Z07 has a lot of brake ducting already built into the car with these little plastic kind of tunnels that snake their way behind wheels and behind panels and sort of stuff. So... It's no surprise to me that Corvette knows you're going to beat the living crap out of these things. So that's pretty awesome. So it has some plastic floor pans. Okay, save weight. That's not that big a deal. But where the actual seat is itself, you're going to be held in just fine with some metal plating. Aluminum looks like. But warning: danger manifold might explode, and your floor pan might explode if you overdo it, which is about as realistic in a mid-engine car as it is in the Fast and Furious when it happens. So again, one of my favorite comedies, just saying. So Looks like, yeah, from all the pictures I've seen, the seats are very comfortable. They look very nice. You may not, I mean, it's possible, but you may not have to get a race seat if you choose to race one of these. These look fairly comfortable, and I'm sure are rated for crash tests and all sorts of things. But that GT1 here looks very cool. The competition sport one looks like it's like you may not have to go out and buy a dedicated race seat, which is, I think, is pretty cool. Everybody's been wondering kind of about this big row of buttons. It's kind of like a fighter cockpit design. If you remember the old Saabs, that's what they were kind of designed after, because the guys who created Saabs were aircraft architects, basically. And so this is not surprising here. It's not my favorite design element, I'll be honest. I think they could have done something better with the aircon controls. I get it. It's a styling design, but in my opinion, I don't know. I would rather have just analog, push, like actually get tactile feedback on the button. So this says the forced injection version of the LT2 V8 we never get it in the 2020, but hopefully 2021. That's actually the rumor that I've been hearing, that the Z cars, the Z06, ZR1, etc., will probably have some sort of forced induction, 21, 22, somewhere in there. So that's the rumor that I've been hearing. Can't reveal my source, sorry, but that is 21, 22 model year, which is the one hopefully I'll be waiting for. The numbers on this car are absolutely insane. $60,000 they said is going to be the starting price for one of these things. And that's kind of where people are talking about making this kind of supercar, hypercar comparison, and they're saying, well, this is baloney. With sanctity of our supercars, sanctity of all sorts of things. But I think it's going to be awesome. I think it's going to be awesome to see a ton of these things rolling around. But is it really a supercar? Feel free to comment below. Do you think this is an actual supercar? I'm going to give you a hint, and I think it is. I think it fits the definition, because if you think of what is a current supercar now, it's mid-engine, it is sports-oriented, it has usually a bigger engine with more horsepower. This one has around 500. And if you look at the kind of standard supercars from Ferrari, Lamborghini, etc., it's kind of up there with standard supercar. It's kind of on the low end, because this is the entry-level model. So to be very clear, entry-level model. This is not your granddaddy Z cars. But for 60 grand, this is going to ruffle a lot of feathers, especially at the Ferrari dealerships and that sort of thing. Especially like if you look at the NSX, the new one, people are saying, well, that's a supercar too, based on shape and everything. So it's very nebulous what a supercar actually is. Is the front engine Corvette a supercar? It has supercar numbers and performance, especially on the track, but I'm not 100% sure. It's Wikipedia says here, a supercar, loosely defined, high-performance, street-legal sports car. Okay, we'll talk about hypercar in a second. So I think we can make a distinction between all exotics are supercars for the most part, right? But not all supercars are exotics. So to me, the exotic is something that is not from your country of origin, and limited run numbers, high value tag or price tag that goes with it. So that piece puts you in that exotic category of limited availability and high price tag, and kind of crazy lines and big engines and that sort of thing. To me, a supercar is something where it's based on performance, and it performs better than most, I would say 99% of the cars on the road, and you're putting competitive times down. It's a street legal, not quite race car, not quite there yet because it's not gutted and everything, but it's in the line of performance oriented cars. Would I call a Miata a supercar? No. It's underpowered. It's too small. It's not flashy. I don't think it doesn't fit the bill. It's a front engine car with a 4-cylinder, not enough horsepower. So I think there are some requirements, and those are, decent amount of horsepower. I'm going to go there and say it's got to be mid-engine or rear engine, so that eliminates your front engine Ferrari cars, also eliminates all your front engine Corvettes. But I think, you can get a supercar that is mid-engine and or rear engine and high performance. The goal is that it's a high performance car with a lot of horsepower, and it's, pretty darn close. You don't need to do a whole lot to turn it into a functioning race car. Street legal as well. Now, there's a difference between like a hypercar, right? What's the difference between hypercar and supercar? I've got my own opinion. I'm not going to read this article to you. You can read it on your lonesome. But I think there is a difference between supercar and hypercar. So we've got a kind of Lamborghini here in front of us, and then we've kind of got the McLaren next to it. To me, the hypercar is that one next level. Everything is performance oriented. Everything is just that much more. And the jump between supercar and hypercar, in my opinion, is quite large. There's a big gap there between a supercar and a hypercar. Hypercars, to me, big horsepower numbers, tuned straight from the factory, don't need a lot of work. The aftermarket's going to be limited because there's not a whole lot you're going to be able to do. It is, in my opinion, the closest thing to a race car you will ever get that can put license plates on it. So super limited availability, super high price. To me, I put the cutoff at $1 million. A hypercar is something that is kind of unobtainium sort of dollars. And when you look at it, there's a lot of supercars, and in my opinion, there's going to be a $60,000 brand new supercar coming out very soon. But hypercar, I would say, is kind of, you take all your supercars, and I think this person here who wrote this had a good point, which is if you take all your supercar group and then take the top 1% of that, that's your hypercar. Okay, it's a bonkers car. And the debate can go on forever and ever, but let me know what you think in the comments. But that's, to me, the difference between a supercar and a hypercar and kind of your regular car. In my opinion, the Chiron and the other Bugattis are hypercars. 1,600 horsepower, multi-million-dollar price tag. I mean, capable of doing things that a supercar can never come close to doing. Okay, so I would also put the restriction on hypercar on performance as well. So at the time and when it was built, can it do something that no other car can do? The Bugatti Chiron does 238, 239, something like that. No other car can do this. Flat out can't. A lot of companies claim they can, but this one has proved that it can. Or does it lay down crazy lap times? Okay, so hypercar level lap times at certain tracks, provable things. Horsepower numbers don't mean a whole lot unless you can actually put the power down. So, anyway, what do you think? Put a comment in below. Let me know. Am I off base? Is my definition way out of left field? You want to start a debate about whether the Corvette is a legit supercar, despite it being a Chevrolet American car, and B, being a car that's $60,000 that's got that price tag of $60,000. So I don't know. Let me know what you think. If you are one who only thinks supercars can be Italian or German, well, what about all the Japanese versions? Supra and the kind of tuned up 2JZs. And also kind of the NSX, which is, in my opinion, a supercar as well. Despite not having super high horsepower, I think the NSX qualifies for that supercar status. Which, by the way, this leads me to my final point. Did you notice that the Supra is $56,000 and the Corvette, which is Chevrolet, by the way, not a BMW version, is $60,000? So for $4,000 more, you get yourself a mid-engine car that's not a BMW Z4. So anyway, thanks for watching. Appreciate everybody coming back. Everybody who has subscribed lately, awesome. Came back to a bunch of numbers, folks that joined. So anyway, thanks a lot. Have a good day. Put some comments in below, and I'll check you guys later.